Today we're going to talk about how self-awareness develops emotional intelligence. Because self-awareness is the number one skill I coach when I'm working with motorsports athletes, any client. Day one, week one, always starts with self-awareness. And what that basically means is what patterns of thought, what patterns of feelings, what patterns of beliefs, what can you just reveal or learn by getting curious about yourself and just being a little introspective and saying, hey, what seem to be my patterns here? What can I learn from them? Free of judgment, free of playing the victim, very, very important, free of playing the victim, free of playing the judge. Because if you get into that character of playing the victim or playing the judge, what happens is when you start to become self-aware, you start to have emotional consequences that don't serve you and that don't serve the process of being introspective, self-aware, and trying to become more conscious of how you think, feel, and act. And when you start to become that judge or that victim, those emotions push you away from wanting to do that behavior again instead of bringing you closer to wanting to do it again. So my name is Dr. Jay Kavanaugh of thevibemindset.com. We've got some great tools at the website. Go check them out. So let's get into it. Now, when we talk about being self-aware, one of the key things is that we've got to start with where are we focusing our energy and attention? Because that's the beginning of it all, right? In order to improve our emotional intelligence, we really need to start with getting outside of ourselves, almost becoming the observer of who we are. I oftentimes like to imagine myself, another version of myself, maybe a foot or two behind me, looking down and saying, hey, what do we got here? Or, hey, isn't that interesting? And so what's funny is whenever I do find or reveal something about myself, a pattern that maybe doesn't serve me, or maybe something foolish that I can't believe that I haven't revealed or found or taken action on to maybe improve, the default phrase I always have, because I think it just desensitizes myself and decreases the chance of me playing the victim or the judge, is I say, well, isn't that interesting? Because it is. When you get curious about learning about your patterns and how you think and respond and react, there is definitely a satisfying curiosity there. And when you come at it from the perspective of no matter what happens, I'm going to learn the patterns that serve me and I'm going to learn the patterns that don't serve me. When you start to have that perspective of being open to both sides of that revelation, it just kind of makes it a lot easier for you to kind of break in and kind of start becoming the observer, free of judgment, free of ridicule, free of trying to come up with a plan right now. Oftentimes, I think if you're really going to be great at self-awareness and you're really going to put the time and energy into it the right way, it's being super focused, highly attentive to just being aware and maybe even journaling or writing down the patterns, the thoughts, but not so much taking action on them quite yet. Because I think it should be a two-part process. Because if you go into self-awareness paired with, hey, I'm the man, I need to figure this out, or I'm a strong woman, I can figure out anything, it takes away from your focus and energy and attention of the self-awareness and brings it into a place of, taking action, which certainly is a great idea. But I think to do the best job possible at becoming more self-aware, you want to just focus on that one task at one time. All right, a couple other things. Definitely one of the things that I always tell people is be curious. It's one of the most powerful things you could do when you're starting to go through this self-transformation, when you're starting to learn about yourself. Just be curious. Because it is interesting. You're interesting. Your friends are interesting. And not only be curious about yourself, I think sometimes if you're a little resistant to becoming self-aware, sometimes you can just be aware of others and you start there and say, oh, wow, how did what I say affect this other person? And what could be the perspective they had? How did they view things? This one comment that I gave, how did they view it? What was their perspective? Because I know mine. Mine was over here, but if theirs is over here, no wonder why they reacted the way they did, right? And so oftentimes when you're exploring that self-awareness, you want to look for reactions versus responses, okay? When you start to look for reactions versus responses, you start to see that responses are typically associated with where a little bit more of a stronger control of your emotional state is. You're able to kind of better manage the way you interact with others and you manage and deal with situations. Whereas reactions are oftentimes where we reveal these patterns that are automated, these default patterns. And there's a lot of gold there, you know? And what you can do is you start writing down a list of the reactions that you have and then put them to the side. And then another day, look at them and say, what could have been a response as opposed to a reaction in this situation? Or how could I have shifted my perspective? Or could I imagine things going differently? What would I have imagined them, in an ideal situation, what would I have imagined that response to have been like? And sometimes just the act of imagining what a better response might be oftentimes reveals some of the answers to what it in fact would be, because sometimes we don't always have the answers. But if you can just start to ponder, start to question, start to get curious, sometimes those answers will start to reveal themselves, because oftentimes I think we're more intuitive than we lead ourselves on to believe. All right, a couple other things I want to cover. Awareness, like I said, requires attention. Without attention, you cannot have awareness. So what's the opposite of attention? It's basically distraction. And so in order to become self-aware, you want to really do what you can to decrease distractions, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's a TV on the background. Just be hyper-focused. Don't be in a highly stimulating environment. Try to just sit down and be comfortable and relax with yourself and maybe even reflect. It doesn't have to be something actively going on for you to become self-aware, but it could even be a reflection on, hey, what was the highlight of my day yesterday? And where was there an opportunity for me to improve? And I think one of the mistakes that sometimes we make when we try to become more self-aware is we only look for the things that we do wrong. But then if we focus on just the things we do wrong, then they expand and then they become a bigger thing than they are. At least we perceive them oftentimes to be bigger than they are. But the reality is we need to find some sort of balance. And the way to find balance is say, hey, this is a pretty good pattern right here. Look what I was doing here. I like that. I like that a lot. I am proud of that. That's a win. I'm going to celebrate that win. I'm going to reflect on that and I'm going to expand that win. So always remember, self-exploration and self-awareness leading to that development of your emotional intelligence is a process of not just looking for where the opportunities are to improve, but also highlighting the areas where, hey, pat on the back, I'm doing all right. Things are going well, okay? So don't forget, you need to have that balance. All right, so if you have any questions, like I said, my name is Dr. Jake Kavanaugh of thevibemindset.com. We're going to have more videos like this on becoming self-aware. Get curious. Look into yourself. Look into the past. Look even for patterns in the relationships you've had in the past. There's so much gold to be had there. And if you have any questions, certainly reach out to us. We love hearing from you guys. Contact form is on the website. Once again, if you want to ask us any questions, comment below. Love to interact with you. And by the way, you want to check out some other websites or I'm not editing that out. If you want to check some other videos, check them out above. And we've got some great resources on our website. We have a mailing list. We're creating an app literally that is going to probably be done tomorrow. And we also have some guided meditations on trait embodiment, really interesting stuff. And we're also creating a live group chat that we're going to have where we do some weekly coaching calls, and that is in the works right now. It's going to be great. Probably by the time you get to this, it will already be live. So go to the website, reach out. Thank you so much for your time. Love you guys and take care.